John. Thanks, team.
John's happy to go.
Thanks. Welcome, John. Good morning, everyone. I've come to talk about the financing of the capital projects program, and in particular the carryover of the $15.3 million of works from year two. And in reading the consultation document, it didn't really clarify whether that money had been subject to ratepayer funding in year two, which I assume the debt component of it would have been. And it didn't clarify whether we're again in year three being asked to pay twice for that. And for that reason, I thought I'd come along and ask that question, that are we being double billed here? And I'm sure that the elected members will delve into that and satisfy yourself. The total of that $15.3 million in debt equates to something like $695 per rateable property on average. But the total capital works program of something like $81 million is a far bigger cost per rateable property. And of course, the debt doesn't go away, as the Americans with their debt ceiling crisis have found out. It's got to be paid back or financed continuously. There is a real cost to the ratepayers in this very ambitious capital works program that you've got. And, if we get to, as it alludes here, we're getting to exceed our debt limit. For all of us personally, if our credit card is maxed out, the one thing we do is stop spending. And so I just ask you to consider the level of debt, the servicing of it through rates, and eventually the ratepayers, long after me probably, are still going to be trying to pay it back. That's the question I've got. Are we being paid, billed twice, year two and year three, for those capital works of $15.3 million? Where's that money gone? Has it gone into a council reserve fund and we're being billed again? Could it be taken back out of the council's back pocket and put into year three? The other thing I submitted on were the fees and charges with the RMA fees, and I just noticed that they do seem to be quite a large jump or increase. For instance, the limited notified deposit or limited notified resource consent application, deposit going to $5,000. Typically, you get a limited notified application where someone is doing a minor building project. There's an impingement on a bulk and location requirement in the district plan. They need to get their neighbour's written approval, and they don't talk to their neighbour, or the neighbour doesn't talk to them, so it has to go limited notified. So it might be quite a minor building project, and all of a sudden they've got to stump up with $5,000. And so the higher fees in that fees and charges schedule are really a barrier to ratepayers progressing development in the district. The $5,000 for limited notified equates to something like 37 hours for a planner's time in processing an application. A very minor application that they've probably got several templated on their computer already, and it would probably take them 4 or 5 hours. A cornerstone of the Act when it comes to charging is actual and reasonable, that we should only be charging what is actual and what is reasonable. And to take $5,000 off someone for the fact that their garage is a little close on one corner to a boundary, and then, and I note what Nathan Hole has said, you don't actually have the ability to refund deposits. But yeah, to take the money off them in the first place is quite a hurdle for people to get over. And finally, I'd just like to finish with a few, get off the brickbats and get onto the bouquets. Caroline Bay Dog Access is brilliant. Thank you very much. I go down there regularly with my dogs. And I'd commend it to you to go down and just have a look at how many people and how many dogs are down there on a sunny Saturday or Sunday morning. It's a real benefit for Timaru. Passive recreation, the coastal walkway, our walkways, reserves and parks are wonderful. It's one of the reasons why I moved back to live permanently in Timaru, because of that. And I meet people on the walkways who are from out of town and are really impressed with what we've got here. So keep it up. And finally, the rocking horse at the Caroline Bay Playground. 3 generations of my family have enjoyed that rocking horse. I hope when the ribbons cut on sea play and the savouries are being eaten, that the rocking horse is back in its usual place on the playground. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that, and appreciate the bouquets as well. Did you want to answer that, Councillor Jackson, as far as the rocking horse?
Yeah, so during the engagement process, a lot of the feedback that we had was around the rocking horse and the fact that people like you have many memories of that rocking horse, and me for that matter. And so it's always been a major consideration for us to return that horse back to the playground once it's completed. So that is happening. I had some amazing offers from local engineers to help spruce it up and make sure that it's all safety approved. So it needs to go through a couple of wee sort of jigs, but no, it'll be back on the playground.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
One moment. Any further questions? Sorry. Just wanted to mention the RMA fees. Thanks again for bringing some emphasis to that. So we will discuss that in deliberations this afternoon. So I think the team are hearing that loud and clear, which is really good. And I'll just ask Chief Executive just to make comment on in regard to the 15.3 mil. Your first point, I think that we'll just clear that one up if we can.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, look, John, with projects that are carried over, the funding isn't drawn until we actually commence the physical work. So if it's loan funded and we didn't start it this year, we're starting it next year. We draw the funding next year when we start the work. So you don't actually get caught on a double dip because the money isn't drawn until the project started. If it's done by way of depreciation and it's provided for, it sits in that fund until the project is commenced as well.
Yeah, that's great news. Thanks. I thought that if it was there in the annual plan and the rates were struck on it, then we were paying rates on that financing cost, regardless of whether the work is carried out.
Yeah, so the part that is in the annual plan, but again doesn't get triggered or activated as the interest in the financing cost, but that's modelled on the basis that if you draw it, then of course you'll start paying the interest, so that doesn't flow either. So the capital, if the work isn't undertaken or if it's delayed or deferred, then the money isn't drawn and so those costs aren't incurred until such time as the money is drawn to actually get on and do the works.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Piddington.
So just trying to follow John's point, though, we must be rating for the interest on it when we do our budget, surely.
Through you, Your Worship, we model to rate, but if we don't actually draw it down, there's no interest charged on it, so therefore it doesn't get paid. But it's modelled into the financial models. But it's only paid, of course, if we draw the loan and the interest is incurred.
Sorry, I'm still with John though in terms.
Sorry,
So I'm still with John though. Part of our rates must cover that cost because we said we were going to do it.
Yeah, so the way we do it is that the interest is commenced in the year after. So if we draw the money in the say we're in the 22-23 financial year, if we've drawn it in this year, the interest and the financing costs commence in the year beginning 1 July.
Yeah, no, I take your point. I understand what you're trying to say. So effectively, this year we're rating for something and we're not necessarily delivering in it. And what would happen in that regard is that rate is being applied to something else. So it's not being applied to the original project. That would be the case, wouldn't it, effectively? And so you're getting a subsidisation on one versus another, which would be my interpretation. Because if last time we had 4.9 or 5.2 as an example, that's right, we can pick this up this afternoon. But I think that's the point we're making. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship, it might be easier to pick it up through this afternoon. I guess the broad principle is that if we don't do the project, we don't draw the money, therefore you're not rated for it. What happens when we recalibrate and so on, and that's the purpose of carryovers and estimating that, is to know how much we might need, but we can explore that this afternoon, Your Worship.
No, that's cool. No, brilliant. Thank you, John. Really appreciate your submission.